The vastness of space was a silence that pressed in from all directions. Humanity's Titan-class ship, the Horizon, glided smoothly through the infinite black expanse, its engines humming with the quiet power of advanced technology. A ship of unimaginable size and capability, the Horizon was humanity's pride, built to venture further into space than any vessel before it. Yet, despite the marvels of technology surrounding them, the crew remained cautious, as deep space always held the unknown. The mission was clear: chart the distant reaches of the galaxy, uncover hidden worlds, and make first contact with alien species if possible. But that would come later. Right now, the crew's job was routine: exploring. Captain Morgan stood in the observation deck, his gaze fixed on the stars as they streamed by like distant fireflies. He wasn't alone. Lieutenant Carter, his second in command, was busy at the navigation console, scanning for any anomalies that might be of interest. "Anything unusual, Carter?" Captain Morgan asked, his voice calm, but with a note of curiosity. "No, sir," Carter replied, his fingers flying over the controls. "All systems are operating within normal parameters. No sign of anything out of the ordinary." Morgan nodded but didn't turn away from the view. It wasn't like him to feel unease, but there was something about this mission that seemed too quiet. Space, after all, was never quiet. There was always something, even if you couldn't hear it. Suddenly, a soft beep broke the silence. It was faint at first, barely noticeable, but it grew louder as it echoed through the ship. Carter's fingers froze on the console, and he glanced over at Morgan. "Captain, I'm getting something strange. A signal. It's not from any of our known systems. It's old." Morgan turned sharply, his interest piqued. "Old? How old?" Carter's fingers worked quickly. "It looks like it's been broadcasting for hundreds of years, maybe more. But it wasn't on any frequency we've encountered before." The captain's heart skipped a beat. "Can you decode it?" "I'm trying, sir," Carter responded, his brow furrowing as he worked with increasing urgency. "It's not like any language we've ever seen. It's too complex, almost like a pattern. A code, but with no clear start or finish." Morgan leaned closer to the console, his curiosity turning into a mix of excitement and caution. "Do you think it's alien?" "That's what I'm starting to think, sir," Carter said. His voice was steady, but there was a hint of uncertainty in it. "But it doesn't make sense. There's no sign of any other ships. No other signals. It's almost as if the message is waiting for us." The captain's thoughts raced. If this was an alien signal, this could be humanity's first real encounter with extraterrestrial intelligence, a discovery that could change everything. Yet something about it didn't sit right with him. It was too deliberate, too carefully hidden. And the message was too old. Who had sent it? And why had it waited so long to be heard? "We need to investigate," Morgan decided, his voice firm. "Are you sure, Captain?" Carter asked. "We don't know what we're dealing with here. It could be a trap." Morgan thought for a moment. He had never been one to shy away from a challenge, especially not when humanity's place in the universe was on the line. But this was different. Something about the way the signal felt, almost like it had been waiting for them, made his instincts sharpen. "I don't think it's a trap. I think it's an invitation." The crew on the bridge exchanged uncertain glances, but Morgan's decision was final. "Prepare the ship to follow the signal. We're going in." With a few swift commands, Carter set the course. The ship's engines hummed to life as the Horizon altered its path, its massive frame cutting through space like a knife. As they moved closer to the source of the signal, Morgan couldn't shake the feeling that they were being drawn into something much bigger than themselves. The feeling grew stronger as the hours passed, and the ship closed in on the signal's origin. The signal led them to the farthest reaches of uncharted space. No maps, no records, nothing to explain what they were heading toward. Only the beacon, a faint pulse against the dark emptiness. The silence around them seemed to press in on all sides, the vastness of space becoming even more overwhelming. The unknown stretched ahead, taunting them with its mysteries. At long last, the signal stopped. There was no warning. One moment, the ship was following the pattern, trying to decode it, and the next, it vanished, like someone had turned off a switch. "Wait," Carter said, looking at the screen in confusion. "The signals. Gone." Captain Morgan's heart skipped a beat. "Gone? What do you mean, gone?" "It's just not there anymore. Like it was never there," Carter replied, staring at the empty screen, his voice thick with disbelief. "Sir, it's gone completely. No trace. No energy signatures. Nothing." Morgan's eyes narrowed as he scanned the stars beyond. Something wasn't right. The message had been there. It had drawn them this far. And now it was gone. "We're too far now to turn back. We press on," Morgan ordered, his voice low but steady. The crew exchanged uneasy glances, but the captain's tone was resolute. Without the signal to guide them, they were now completely alone in the darkness of deep space, and with no sign of what had sent the message or where it had gone, the mystery only deepened. What had they stumbled upon? And why had the message disappeared just as they were closing in? As the horizon continued its journey into the unknown, the crew couldn't help but feel that the silence around them wasn't an absence of noise. It was the calm before a storm. The question wasn't just who had sent the message, but why, and what would happen when they finally discovered the truth. The hours seemed to stretch into an uneasy silence as the horizon cruised deeper into the unknown. The hum of the ship's engines was the only sound that filled the bridge, but it didn't bring the usual comfort. Captain Morgan stood at the helm, his eyes scanning the empty expanse of space, as if expecting something to materialize from the darkness at any moment. The signal had vanished, and now they were completely on their own, unsure of what awaited them. Lieutenant Carter was at the navigation console, his face tight with concentration. He had set the ship on the same course, hoping that they might still pick up some trace of the strange signal. But there was nothing. For all the technology aboard the Horizon, it felt like they were stranded in a vast, empty ocean. "Anything?" Morgan asked, his voice low but intent. "No, sir," Carter replied. "I checked every frequency, every possible channel. The signal's gone. But," he hesitated, "I'm picking up something else. A ship." Morgan turned sharply. "A ship? Are you sure?" "I'm positive, Captain. It's faint, almost like a shadow in the distance. But it's there. It's not ours. It's too far out for us to be able to identify it with certainty. But it's a ship." The words hit Morgan like a sudden cold gust of wind. They weren't alone. "How far?" he asked. 30,000 kilometers. I'll get a closer reading soon, but it's unlike anything we've encountered. No markings, no design that matches any known ship type. It doesn't look human." Morgan's pulse quickened. This was it. This could be the encounter they had been waiting for, the first contact. But there was something unsettling about the way the ship appeared. It was as if it had been waiting for them, or worse, watching them. "We need to approach with caution," Morgan said, his voice steady but with an edge of caution. "Prepare a team for a possible reconnaissance. Carter, can we track its movements?" Carter worked quickly, his eyes narrowing as he monitored the ship's movement. "It's not moving, Captain. At least not in any way that makes sense. It's stationary, but it's drifting slightly, as if it's caught in a current we can't see." Captain Morgan's mind raced. A ship that just drifts. No technology he knew could explain that. A drift like that meant something was holding it in place, or it could be a trap. Either way, they had to investigate. "Can we get a visual?" Morgan asked. "Working on it now," Carter replied, his fingers moving over the console. "The ship's design. It's like nothing I've ever seen. It's enormous, Captain. It's almost like it's built to survive the harshest environments, but there's something about the shape. It's too symmetrical, too perfect." A shiver ran down Morgan's spine. The ship, whatever it was, didn't belong here. It felt alien, too alien even for an unknown species. Yet the closer they got, the more the horizon seemed to be drawn toward it. "Steady as she goes, Carter," Morgan ordered. "Let's get a closer look." Minutes passed, and the strange ship loomed ever closer on the scanner. As they approached, a sense of dread settled over the bridge. The crew remained silent, each one wondering what they would find. Was this the ship that had sent the mysterious signal? If so, where was its crew? Why had they been left alone, adrift in the vast emptiness? Then, just as the ship came into view, the bridge lights flickered. A low hum vibrated through the walls, like an unseen force was shifting the very fabric of space around them. The screens displayed a strange pattern, pulsing, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. The ship was alive with energy, but it was quiet. Too quiet. "What is that?" Carter muttered, his eyes glued to the screen. "The readings. Captain, it's not just a ship. It's a structure, a station." Morgan stepped forward, his eyes narrowing. "A station, but it's drifting in open space. Who would build something like that? And leave it here?" "I don't know, sir," Carter replied, his voice tight. "But look at this." On the screen, a massive section of the ship shifted. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, an enormous door or opening began to reveal itself. Unlike any airlock or docking bay they had ever seen, it was huge, designed to take in a ship the size of the horizon, or something even larger. It was as if the ship, no, the station, was preparing to welcome them in, or perhaps to trap them. "Do we approach?" Carter asked, his voice betraying a hint of fear. Morgan felt his heart race. Every instinct told him to turn back, but he knew that if they left now, the mystery would remain forever unsolved. They had to find out what this was, what the station held. "Prepare for docking. Secure all systems. We go in." The crew moved quickly, preparing for the unexpected. The vast unknown stretched before them, and no one knew what waited on the other side of that massive door. The silence of space enveloped them once again, but this time it felt different. It wasn't just the absence of sound, it was the weight of something immense, something ancient, that had been waiting for them to arrive. As the horizon moved closer, the ship's engines hummed softly, but the rest of the crew was still. Every step they took felt like they were crossing into another world, a world that was both beckoning them and threatening them at the same time. The closer they got to the station, the more intense the feeling grew. They were about to make history, but as they neared the opening, a strange thought lingered in the back of Morgan's mind. What if they weren't the first ones to come here? What if someone, or something, was already waiting for them? The door opened wider, and the horizon drifted closer, the unknown now within reach. As the horizon neared the immense, glowing doorway of the alien station, the silence in the bridge became almost suffocating. The crew moved with a sense of urgency but also unease. The massive, unblinking eyes of the unknown ship watched them, the air thick with tension. Captain Morgan stood at the helm, his hands clenched into fists, his gaze never leaving the massive opening ahead. There was no turning back now. Whatever awaited them on the other side would define the future of humanity. "Steady, everyone." Morgan's voice rang out in the quiet. His words were calm, but they didn't mask the nervous energy creeping into the room. "Lieutenant Carter, maintain the course. No sudden moves." "Aye, Captain," Carter replied, his fingers moving swiftly over the controls. The hum of the ship's engines filled the room as the horizon slowly and cautiously glided toward the opening, the alien station growing larger and more imposing with every passing second. The glowing edges of the door flickered, almost as if reacting to their approach. The closer they got, the more intense the pulsing energy seemed. It wasn't just light. It was something deeper, something alive. Morgan could feel it, a sense of power that was both foreign and deeply ancient. He couldn't explain it, but everything about the station seemed to pulse with an intelligence that went beyond simple technology. "I don't like this," Lieutenant Carter muttered under his breath. I've never seen anything like it. The station's energy readings are off the charts. It's almost like it's scanning us. Focus, Carter, Morgan said, his voice sharp but not without sympathy. We don't know what we're dealing with yet, but we're not turning back now. Keep it steady. The ship drew closer, and as they entered the vast threshold, the bridge's lighting flickered. The strange pulsing energy surrounding the station seemed to seep into the very walls of the horizon. It wasn't just the ship. Everything about the station felt alive, like it was watching them, waiting for them. The door before them stretched into darkness, an empty black void that swallowed the light of the horizon. Yet, as they crossed the threshold, the darkness receded. The ship's instruments began to blink, almost as if the station itself was responding to their presence. "Captain, we're inside," Carter said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But it doesn't look like we're in space anymore." Morgan's eyes widened as he stared at the monitors. The readings showed no signs of stars, planets, or anything familiar. They were in some kind of vast, artificial space. The interior was massive, stretching endlessly in all directions, with no visible walls or boundaries. The ship floated silently, drifting within a hollow structure that felt both impossibly ancient and overwhelmingly advanced. "Where are we?" Morgan asked, his voice filled with disbelief. "I don't know, sir," Carter replied. "The ship's sensors are going crazy. I'm getting massive energy readings, but they don't match anything we've seen before. It's almost like the station's energy is absorbing ours." A shiver ran down Morgan's spine. This wasn't just an alien structure. It was a living entity. Whatever technology powered it was far beyond human comprehension. "Prepare to dock," Morgan ordered, though his voice felt heavy with uncertainty. The air in the room grew thicker, as though everyone on the bridge could feel the pressure of what was coming. They were stepping into the heart of the unknown. As the ship drifted forward, the shadows of the station seemed to shift around them. No clear path, no clear sign of where to go. Yet, the immense opening, a giant airlock of sorts, loomed ahead. The horizon gently maneuvered into the docking bay, and the moment the ship's engines powered down, the hum of the ship seemed to meld with the low vibrations of the station. The bridge fell eerily quiet. Captain Morgan rose from his seat, his eyes scanning the crew. "We're docking," he said with forced confidence. "Prepare for the unknown." "Sir," Carter called out, his voice uncertain, "I'm detecting something on the station's surface. It's moving." He paused, watching the screens. "There are figures, shadows. I think we're not alone here." The hairs on the back of Morgan's neck stood up. "Figures? What kind of figures?" "I don't know," Carter replied, his voice shaky. "They're not human, but they're moving. Almost like they're waiting for us." Morgan felt the chill crawl up his spine. The station was alive, watching them. They weren't alone. "Keep calm, everyone," Morgan said, though he wasn't sure if his own words reassured anyone. "We've come this far. We stick together." "Lieutenant Carter, what's the status of the airlock?" "It's secure, Captain. We're ready to disembark." Morgan took a deep breath, then turned to his team. "Prepare for a ground team. I'll lead the way. Stay sharp. We don't know what we'll find." The airlock doors opened with a low mechanical hiss. The moment they stepped out of the ship, they were greeted by an unnatural stillness. The vastness of the station was overwhelming, the architecture unlike anything they had seen before. The walls shimmered faintly, shifting as if made from some form of living material, yet perfectly symmetrical and designed. It felt ancient, but not in the way human technology might age. This felt alien. The floor beneath their boots hummed, and strange symbols were etched into the walls, symbols that none of the crew could decipher. "Stay close," Morgan ordered, his voice steady but low. They moved as one, cautiously, stepping into the heart of the unknown. As they ventured deeper into the station, the walls seemed to close in on them. The air was still, yet there was a faint sound, like a distant whisper that echoed through the endless halls. It was impossible to tell where it was coming from. The shadows ahead seemed to shift, and then, without warning, a figure stepped from the darkness. A tall, slender being, its body encased in a strange, smooth armor that reflected the eerie glow of the station. It had no visible face, only a featureless helmet, but it exuded a presence, a feeling of intelligence, of ancient wisdom. It raised its hand, and the crew froze, unsure of what to do. Before anyone could react, the figure spoke, its voice echoing in their minds. "Welcome, humanity." The words sent a jolt through Morgan's body. They were no longer just explorers. They were now guests in a place that defied everything they understood about the universe. The first contact had begun. But what did it mean? And more importantly, who were they? "You said." The figure's words echoed in the minds of Captain Morgan and his crew, resonating deeply with each of them. The voice was smooth, ancient, yet impossibly clear, as if it came not from a physical mouth, but from the very air around them. It was both a greeting and a command, a presence so overwhelming that every instinct screamed to run. Yet curiosity held them frozen. Morgan was the first to recover, his mind racing. "Welcome," he repeated, his voice firm but betraying his confusion. "Who are you? What is this place?" The figure stood unmoving, its hand still raised. It seemed to be studying them, though its helmeted face gave no indication of emotion. There was something unnerving about its stillness, an unnatural calm in its presence. It could have been a statue, but its movements, when they came, were deliberate, graceful, and eerily quick. "We are the Onyx," the voice replied, resonating through their minds once again. "We are the keepers of knowledge and protectors of the forgotten." Captain Morgan's brow furrowed. Onyx. It sounded more like a title than a species name. What did they mean by keepers of knowledge? And the forgotten. Was this a relic of a lost civilization, or something else entirely? The more Morgan thought, the more questions came, but the answers seemed just out of reach. Before he could respond, the figure made a motion, and the station seemed to come alive. The walls around them began to shimmer, revealing intricate symbols that shifted and morphed. They weren't like anything the crew had ever seen before, but somehow they felt familiar, as if a forgotten memory was stirring in the back of Morgan's mind, just beyond his grasp. The figure lowered its hand slowly, and for the first time, it spoke without entering their minds. Its voice was soft but authoritative, its tone carrying the weight of centuries. "You have crossed into the domain of the Onyx," it said, "the realm of the first, those who once ruled the stars before your kind. You are not the first to seek us, but you may be the first to truly understand." Morgan exchanged glances with his crew. They had been sent on a mission to explore, to make first contact with alien life, but nothing in their training or preparation had prepared them for this. There was no hostility in the Onyx's words, but there was something else, something deeper, an understanding of something they didn't yet comprehend. "What do you want from us?" Morgan asked carefully, his voice cutting through the thick tension. "Why have you brought us here?" The figure stepped closer, its movements fluid and precise. It seemed to glide, its form becoming even more ethereal as it moved. "Not brought," it corrected. "Invited. You were always meant to find us. You, the children of Earth. You are at the threshold of something vast and ancient. The stars have watched you. Your kind has traveled far, but you have yet to understand the true cost of such ambition." The final words struck Morgan like a blow to the chest. What did it mean? The true cost. Had humanity's quest for expansion stirred something? What did they know that they were not sharing? The figure gestured toward the shimmering walls of the station. "Before you can learn, before you can understand the knowledge of the Onyx, you must prove yourself. This station is not a gift. It is a test, a challenge for those who wish to join us. If you fail, you will never leave." A chill ran through Morgan's veins. The words hung in the air, each one more ominous than the last. The crew exchanged uneasy looks, but Morgan knew there was no turning back now. Whatever lay ahead was their only path forward. Humanity had always faced challenges, but this felt different. This was no simple mission. This was a trial that would determine their fate, and possibly the fate of humanity itself. Prove ourselves, Morgan repeated, his voice steady despite the growing sense of dread. What kind of test? What do we need to do? The onyx figure tilted its head, the movement almost imperceptible. Then, in a voice that held both a warning and a promise, it said, "You will journey deeper into this station. In the depths, you will find what you seek. But be warned, what you find may not be what you expect. You must understand the price of knowledge. Are you ready?" Morgan didn't have to think long. This was humanity's chance, a chance to unlock the secrets of the stars, to push beyond the limits of their understanding. The stakes were higher than they had ever imagined, but he could not turn back now. The answer was clear, even if the path was uncertain. "We're ready," Morgan said, his voice unwavering. The figure seemed to pause for a moment, as if studying him. Then, without another word, it turned and began to walk down the hall, its form vanishing into the darkness. It beckoned them forward, its movement fluid and purposeful, as though it had always known they would follow. Morgan didn't hesitate. He motioned for his crew to follow. There was no time to waste. They had come this far, and they couldn't afford to falter now. Together, they stepped forward into the depths of the alien station, the walls shifting and changing around them as they ventured deeper into the unknown. The deeper they went, the more oppressive the silence became. The faint hum of the station was the only sound that filled the corridors, but the further they walked, the more it seemed to pulse with an unnatural rhythm. The shadows twisted and elongated, creating an eerie atmosphere that made it hard to focus on anything but the growing sense of unease that settled over them. As they passed through several large chambers, Morgan couldn't help but notice the strange designs carved into the walls, intricate alien symbols that seemed to pulse with energy. They were like nothing he had ever seen, and though they were clearly ancient, there was something modern about them, something familiar. The connection between the past and the future was undeniable. This place had been built by a species far beyond human understanding. And then, at the end of the corridor, they saw it, a massive chamber, its walls lined with glowing panels. In the center of the room, there was a large object, shaped like a sphere, but covered in strange patterns. It was surrounded by a faint golden light, and as the crew entered the room, a strange sensation filled the air, as though the very object was alive. The onyx figure had stopped before the sphere. "This," it said, "is the heart of our knowledge. Here, you will understand the price of what you seek. But remember, what you learn here may change everything. Are you certain you want to proceed?" Morgan's mind raced, but there was no turning back now. The sphere pulsed, calling to them, urging them forward. "Yes," he said quietly, "we're ready." The onyx figure nodded slowly, then stepped aside, allowing them to approach the sphere. As Morgan reached out to touch it, the entire room seemed to breathe. The very air thickened, and a low, rumbling sound echoed through the chamber, as if something immense was waking up. Humanity had stepped into the unknown. And now, they would discover what lay at the heart of all things, whether they were ready or not.